Chapter 2, The Road Less Traveled. I've always felt it was more than just chance that, out of all the guys Levi and I knew in Detroit who dabbled in singing, we picked Lawrence and Obi. It was like tossing a handful of coins in the air and having them all come up heads. And it all started just because we were thinking about girls. At Pershing High School, there was an elite girls' club called the Scheherazads. The prerequisite to membership must have been looking good and being bougie. The head girl, Joanne Artist, was throwing a graduation party in her basement before everyone went off to college in 1954. It was a special occasion, by invitation only, and Joanne asked Levi and me to sing during the party. We eagerly accepted and decided to get two other guys to sing with us. For some reason, we thought a group would be better. Lawrence Payton came to mind immediately. We knew he could sing, was good at harmony, and came from a singing family. Plus, he looked great, which was mandatory since impressing the girls was essential. Levi's mother and Lawrence's father were cousins, so it was like keeping it in the family. Obi Benson we agreed upon too. He had already graduated from high school and was messing around in other singing groups, working and trying to figure out how he was going to get to college. I knew Obi was good, but his singing was really secondary. He had a great personality and was good looking too. We were all about the same height. Levi and I told them about the party and how fine the girls were. They were both totally down, so we went to the party, girl hunting. Singing was the last thing on our minds. By the middle of the party, the records playing were the popular songs of the day. Middle of the Night by the Clovers and Mama, He Treats Your Daughter Mean by Ruth Brown. Joanne cut off the music and introduced Levi and me, telling everyone that we were great singers. Levi piped up that we had a whole group with us, and she said that was even better. Up to that point, we hadn't even thought about what we were going to perform. We all knew that Levi could sing, and whatever he came up with, we'd just improvise and get by. Now we were on the spot, so we went to the side and started whispering, with Levi saying he was going to do a popular song that he knew. Go ahead, man, I said. We'll back you up. The lyrics went like, I'ma sit right down and cry over you. Lawrence paused. Shit, we ain't got no harmony for that. We started getting nervous. We'll put something to it, Lawrence said optimistically, his musical instincts kicking in. Duke, you take the top notes, I got the middle, and Obi, you take the bottom. We gonna start out in unison after Levi sings the first verse. After less than 10 minutes, we were ready. Levi started singing, and then we broke off into a regular three-part harmony. But our voices blended together so well, even Levi glanced over at us. Motherfuck, he just sang the shit out of that song, and we kept adding different harmony phrases. Lawrence would lead out high, and we just picked up on it right away. It was just beautiful. The girls were screaming, wow, y'all are great. Everybody was amazed, and we looked at each other. Damn, it was like we had been rehearsing for 2 weeks. Then one of us said, this should be a group. Can we start rehearsing tomorrow? We all said, hell yes. The icing on the cake that night was that everybody found a girl, but the most important part was that we found each other. After the high we experienced at the party, we made a promise to meet at my house the next day and start really rehearsing. Things just fell into place. Lawrence had a musical ear like a composer, and he put the harmonies together. That's when we realized how good he really was. He was born into a musical family from Georgia. As kids growing up on the North End, we'd walk by Lawrence's house and his uncles would be sitting on the porch all day, playing guitar and singing. After about a week, we must have learned 10 to 12 songs of all different genres, from the Four Freshmen to Ray Charles to the Orioles. Our repertoire drew from the hit parade, be it wonderful ballads like How Deep is the Ocean or swinging songs like September in the Rain. It was easy for Lawrence to keep coming up with songs in different harmonies, and we soon realized how good we were at learning them. We also discovered that as much as Levi loved being the lead, he loved singing harmony just as much. He could back off from singing strong leads and blend right in as the fourth voice like a choir boy. For a guy with that kind of fire in his voice to back down and become a smooth singing choir boy is an incredible talent. It takes a lot of discipline, a lot of knowledge, and a great ear. Fortunately, all of us had great ears. We could pick up a four-part close harmony almost as well as Lawrence could. Lawrence was inspired by the Four Freshmen, who, along with the High-Lows, were the best at four-part harmonies back then. Other groups would not use it. It's not just the 1, 3, and 5 notes of a chord scale, which is a normal three-part harmony. It's 1, 3, 5, and part of 7 and sometimes 9. It's the fourth note that makes it a four-part harmony. You can move up and down along with the melody note and make 4 parts. Lawrence got that knowledge from listening to string sessions, and he fashioned our voices after that. Lawrence could hear a big band arrangement, maybe 16 pieces, and after one listen he could sing each part in perfect pitch. It was incredible. He could read music and write it, but he'd sing our parts to us. He'd sing mine almost like a trumpet part. Then he'd do the second part, which was his, and then the third part, which was Levi's. There was no lead back then on some songs. It was just a 4-part harmony straight through, similar to the Four Freshmen. Lawrence was a real genius, and we were gifted with an all-star team. After rehearsing and learning new songs, we were ready to take the next step. Saturday night amateur competitions in Detroit were a big thing for artists and audiences. They gave new talent a chance to showcase their stuff and maybe even win cash prizes. We were still looking to make some money, so we all agreed to try our luck at a competition at the Warfield Theater on Hastings Street. The street was once the heart of Detroit's Paradise Valley, where the African American community thrived from the 20s through the 50s. In 1954, the Warfield had the biggest amateur show in town. Even though we had perfected our music, we didn't have matching uniforms, which we knew we needed to look like pros. Still, we managed to pull ourselves together with what we had in our closets and tried not to look too shabby. We weren't sharp, but we were determined to look and sing as best we could. Our first number started out, "All right, okay, you win, I'm in love with you." Then we segued into a shout chorus with a four-part harmony like a trumpet section. The audience jumped to their feet, screaming and clapping because our voices sounded like a brass section. After one more song, we ran off the stage to a standing ovation, which led to us winning the show and being approached by a slick-looking guy who was clearly impressed. "Hey, fellas, what y'all call yourself?" he said, rubbing his hands together. "We're the Four Ames," one of us piped up with the name we had decided earlier. "Shit, y'all are good. I think I can get you some work." "What? Where?" I said, jumping on it. I was aggressive when it came to business. I guess spearheading my school paper drive and being in charge of raising the American flag had been good experience. "I can get y'all into some nightclubs," he said, sizing us up. "But we're too young for nightclubs," I hedged. "Well, y'all look the part." "Do you want to work?" he said, already knowing the answer. "Yeah, well, we'd like to make some money," I replied, wondering where this was going. "I tell you what to do," he said, handing us his business card. "My name is Twas. I got a partner named Casablanca. Our agency is Twas and Casablanca." We almost laughed. That was some funny shit, Twas and Casablanca. But we kept cool and just stared at the card to make sure we heard it right. We soon learned it was a real agency run by Twas, who was the working agent, and his partner, Casablanca, a pimp who owned an after-hours joint that mostly funded the agency. The agency booked acts primarily on the Chitlin Circuit, a group of venues where African Americans could safely perform during the segregated pre-civil rights era. Throughout the country, there were clubs, diners, auditoriums, juke joints, and theaters where black folks flocked to be entertained by some of the world's greatest performers, from Duke Ellington to Pearl Bailey and Little Richard. The list included nearly every performer of color, including Levi's cousin, Jackie Wilson. "If you want to get work," Twas explained, "you're gonna need some pictures. We call them lobbies, and you gonna need some uniforms. I'll send the pictures to a few club owners, and as good as y'all look, I can get you some work. I'll tell them how good you sing. But just by y'all looking good, I can get you into a club or two." "Yeah, but how do we get the pictures?" I asked naively. "Well, y'all gonna have to figure that out yourselves," he said, laughing. It was obvious to him we were new to the game. Later, we talked about it amongst ourselves, and it occurred to me I had a cousin who was a photographer, James E. Bailey. He was so good that he later became the personal photographer of the Henry Ford family of Ford Motors. I made my way over to my aunt's house to ask my cousin for a favor. I told him about our singing group winning at the Warfield and maybe getting our first booking. James knew we didn't have any money, but he was impressed by our big dreams. He agreed to take the pictures, but he also said we needed uniforms. "You gonna need some good clothes before you take these pictures. Taking pictures with just your faces ain't gonna get it. Where are we gonna get these clothes?" I asked again, realizing each step was going to be a hurdle. "Well, you gonna have to buy them from somewhere, or rent them, or whatever," James answered. We talked, and I went back to the group. We decided to ask our family, friends, neighbors, anyone who could help us. Begging for handouts, we scraped together a little money and went downtown on a shopping trip. We headed straight down to Hot Sam's, a men's clothing store that had been around since 1921 and sold the sharpest suits at prices so low folks liked to joke they were stolen. Right away, I spotted some white wool suits. I asked Sam Friedman, the owner, if he had 4 of them. He was a little hesitant. "Yeah, I got 'em. What size?" "Well, we're all about the same size, my size," I answered, hoping he'd be cooperative. "Yeah, these cost a little money," he said defensively. "Well, we've got a little money," I said, talking shit. Sam got out his tape measure and fitted us up. Meanwhile, we saw some nice white shirts and asked him to fit them up too. "We don't give credit, you know," he said, anticipating that we didn't have enough for the bill we were racking up. "We'll figure it out when you add it all up," I said, keenly aware that we couldn't afford it. Then I spotted some blue and white shoes and matching blue and white ties that could set it all off. Finally, we asked Sam for the bill, which came to about $150. We had 100, which was a lot of money for us, but we were still short. "Listen, Mr. Sam, we have $100, but we've got this gig coming up in a couple of weeks. We'll pay you the rest of the money then," I offered. "See, I told y'all. I knew you was going to ask that shit." He shook his head. "I don't do no credit. Look, man, this ain't really credit. You're just letting us have these suits so we can make some money. We ain't trying to pay $2, $3, $10 a week. We're gonna pay you all at once, right after the weekend. We've just got to have these suits." We just kept talking, begging him. Finally, for some reason, he broke down. "I'll tell you what," he said. "You look honest enough. I'm gonna let you have them. You don't look like the kind of guys who are trying to beat me out of anything, but you are going to owe me $52 and some change, and if you don't bring me my money, I'll find your asses, and I'll put y'all in jail." We were so thrilled we could have hugged him. "I swear on the Bible," I said, "as soon as we get this money, we gonna bring it to you." And we did. The Monday morning after our first gig, I went down to Hot Sam's and gave him his money. He was so pleased. Years later, his daughter saw me somewhere and told me that her dad always talked about us. He was so glad that he let us have those outfits when we first started out. It was one of the best things he'd ever done. He'd never given credit to anyone, but he was very thankful he helped us, and he felt like he'd played a big part in our success, which he did. "I was the first one who dressed y'all in the business," he said. He just loved the four tops. With Hot Sam's help, we knew we were looking good in our cool white uniforms. I called my cousin to tell him we were ready for our photo shoot. He took some great lobbies for us, probably named for the black and white publicity photos of celebrities and entertainers that lined the entryways and corridors of movie theaters and palaces, restaurants and studios in the 40s and 50s. We called Twas and he wanted to see them right away. "Oh man, these are great," he said. "I'm about to get you all some work." About 3 days later, he called me. At the beginning, I was the guy out in front, driving us forward, not taking no for an answer. I had the energy and the get up and go, probably a lot of nerve, plus a dream. Twas came through with a 3-night gig at Eddie's Lounge in Flint, Michigan, an hour's drive from Detroit. He said he'd drive us back and forth the 60-mile commute each night, pay for the gas, and take a 10% agent fee from the $200 booking. We'd split the rest 4 ways after we subtracted what we owed Hot Sam for our uniforms. We would have done the gig for nothing. "You're going to have to do about 5 songs each show, and you are opening up for a shake dancer called Tequila Wallace." This was another first for us. Sexy women dancing, shaking, and stripping down to a bare minimum was the usual opening act on the Chitlin circuit, and we were well on the road. "Y'all do the best you can," Twas told us, "because if you do good, I got more work for you." Even though we had been learning several songs, we added a few more and made sure we had some smooth moves for the stage. We were flying by the seat of our pants since we had no sheet music. Before we went on stage, Lawrence went to the piano player and told him what key the songs were in. The band was a rhythm section with a couple of horn players. We started off with a song by the Midnighters, "Work With Me, Annie," then followed that up with "September in the Rain" and "How Deep Is the Ocean." The audience didn't know what to expect. At first, they just listened, checking us out. Pretty soon, they started clapping and seemed like they were in seventh heaven. We were singing our butts off, looking at each other and laughing. Levi's years of singing in his childhood paid off. He had great stage presence, and the audience was in the palm of his hands. We just went along with his mastery. By the time we ran off stage, wrapping it up with our own version of "All Right, Okay, You Win," a real hot song back then, people were out of their seats giving us a standing ovation. The applause was ringing in our ears as Twas met us backstage, letting us know he was going to get us more work right then and there. After he left, we just looked at each other and started talking all at once. We knew that this was what we wanted to do, and nothing else. We loved it. Obi said what we were all thinking. "Shit, we can make money. We're as good as anybody out there. Forget what we were trying before. We should be doing this." In unison, we all agreed. The next engagement Twas booked for us was in Cleveland, Ohio, at a club called the Ebony Lounge. 1 week at $400, a big bump for us, but this time we had to find a way to get there and a place to stay. We had a friend who believed in us and was kind enough to drive us to Cleveland, but we had no idea how to get a room. When we arrived, the only people at the club were the musicians, the band leader, and the rhythm section, waiting for the owner to come. The band leader spotted us right away, walking in like we didn't know where we were. "Y'all the new act, the Four Aims?" We nodded. That was the name we stuck with. We really were aiming for the stars. "We heard you're pretty good singers." We said thanks, asking him where we could get a room and how much it would cost. The band leader shrugged. "You need to go talk to Dan Boone," he told us, referring to the owner, "about where y'all gonna stay and whatever else." "Hey man, we ain't got a dime. How do we get food?" I asked. We had our pride, but we hadn't eaten all day. "Why don't you ask him for an advance?" he suggested. "What's that?" I asked. That's how young and inexperienced we were. An advance on the money he is going to pay you. He might give you enough money to check into a hotel and get something to eat. That sounded good, so we sat down to wait along with the band. We started talking, and they quickly discovered that we didn't have our own musical arrangements on paper. "If y'all know your songs, we can get them together for you," he offered, trying to help us out. Lawrence told him the songs we wanted to sing. "This Can't Be Love," "In the Still of the Night," and "The Nearness of You." He said, "Damn, y'all sing these songs?" We knew this wasn't the usual black repertoire. Most of our songs were standards. From the time we started, one of the first things we agreed upon was that we didn't want to be a group like the Midnighters, the Orioles, or the Clovers, all admired R&B groups of the day who sang to black people and in black venues exclusively. We felt that we could sing any kind of song and work anywhere. We weren't trying not to be black. We were just trying to be as good as any group in the business. At that time, the Ink Spots and the Mills Brothers were the only two crossover groups who appealed to both black and white audiences. They'd set the bar, but we thought we could do even better. To add to our list of standards, we told him that we also sang a couple of really funky songs. All right, okay, you win. What did I say? And Shaboom, which was on the hit parade at the time. It wasn't too funky, but we made it sound good. Tell you what, he said, nodding with encouragement. I can write you some piano parts to these songs. I can have these done for tonight, and I'll tell my rhythm section what to do, he said. Dan, the owner, finally arrived and we introduced ourselves. Y'all pretty set for the show tonight? He asked, checking us out. We knew that Twas had given us a really big build-up. We told him that we were getting it together. The band leader was writing our arrangements. We just had one uniform, but we could wash our shirts every night. But look, man, I don't know how to ask you, I said while the other guys held their breath. But we ain't got no money to eat or to check into a hotel. Okay, he said without missing a beat, reaching in his pocket. I can give you an advance. Here's $100. Our eyes lit up. He told us to go to the Collingwood, the hotel where most of the colored performers stayed. It was small, but it didn't cost much. $10 a room per week. He called ahead to let them know we were checking in. Nearby was a good restaurant where we could eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Y'all, go ahead, check in and feed your skinny asses, he said. We really were thin. We took the money and almost ran straight to the restaurant where we sat down and ate for hours. Then we went to the hotel, rested and freshened up. We all lived in separate rooms, barely big enough to fit in, but at least we each had our own space. The Collingwood had no air conditioning though, so we opened the windows and breathed in the fresh air, relaxing for the first time in hours. We felt as good as if we were staying in a five-star hotel. When we arrived back at the Ebony Lounge, a shake dancer was gyrating and shimmying on the floor. She was the opening act, and we were the closing one. When we took to the stage, immediately we could hear the ohs and ahs in the audience. The way we looked, our matching attire, and us being young and good-looking, I didn't put on the glasses I'd worn since I was 14 because I wanted us all to look alike, was the first thing that hit them. Levi used to say, it's called getting 'em. That night we got 'em, and we were so excited when we started performing. We kept hearing people exclaim, these guys can really sing. They were amazed that we sounded like the four freshmen, with the same beautiful harmonies. It was the era where vocalists started being featured, rather than bands and instrumentals. People enjoyed hearing four young black guys who could sing songs like In the Still of the Night, which Della Reese had just put out, This Can't Be Love, and How Deep is the Ocean. We were also singing Ray Charles' funky songs peppered in with the pretty stuff. It was a great mixture, unique on the Chitlin circuit. We weren't concentrating on selling records. We wanted to be live entertainers and follow in the footsteps of Sammy Davis, Barbara McNair, and a few others who were able to climb that ladder of success without having hit records. After our successful opening night, we went back to our little hotel rooms. I couldn't wait to call my mom to share the good news. I was so excited and dialed her on the payphone down the hall. She didn't know I had been singing since I'd left home after graduation. I didn't mention it or that the four of us had been living with Obi. Hi, Mom, I said. I'm in Cleveland singing with the Four Ames. The Four Ames? Who's that? It's my group. We're going to the top. We're aiming for the stars. You singing that devil's music? She was so mad she almost came through the phone. No good can come of it. Mama, it ain't devil's music. We're singing pretty songs and people love it. Dookie, you singing the devil's music and you know it. You know you should be here working or going to school. You got that college scholarship. Plus you took those tests and applied for all those different jobs. They wrote you back letters saying you can work for the city or you can work for the state. Mama, I'm doing what I know I should do. You know I love music. Son, if you was here, I would beat your butt. You know that. I was happy I was 100 miles away because I knew she would have. There was a long pause. I felt bad that I had disappointed her and made her so unhappy. I wondered if she was praying. I was relieved when she finally spoke again. I tell you what, you remember how to pray? Yes, Mama. I want you to go to whatever room by yourself and pray to the Lord, and I guarantee you, Dookie, he'll tell you what to do and what not to do. Promise me you'll do what he tells you. Okay, Mama, I agreed, heartbroken because I thought she would enjoy hearing that I was making money using my God-given talent. I hung up and went back to my room, thinking sadly about everything she said. Because I promised, I said a prayer and fell asleep praying. In my sleep, I had the most beautiful, clear, and vivid dream. The four of us were singing, dressed in silver silk jackets and black ties, dressed to the bone. We were as sharp as anybody in show business. The song we were singing was a big hit, catchy and swinging with a great beat and a tremendous melody. It went on and on. Then all of a sudden, bam! A loud crash cut the dream off. I woke up to see that the window next to my bed had slammed shut. I sat up, half awake, half asleep, but the dream was still in my head. I knew the Lord had just given me my answer. I ran down the hall and started knocking on the guys' doors. I woke everyone up and we met in the hallway. I told them about the dream, how powerful it was. As I described it to them, I was so emotional they cried. Deep in our hearts, we all knew we could really sing. We had that kind of confidence. We were as good as any group we'd heard. But it was more than that. We'd seen the effect we had on people. That was something special. The guys all gathered around and embraced me. Duke had this dream. We're gonna make it. We hugged each other and made a pact that night to stick together no matter what. A pact that was never broken. Naturally, we had no idea of the tests that we'd face along the way. It didn't matter how much confidence we had in our ability. Soon we were about to receive a major lesson in humility. Despite growing up in a city where great singing could be heard in every bar and on every street corner, nothing could have prepared us for the shock we'd experience when we encountered a dazzling, outrageous entertainer, booked in the same venue. He blew us out of the water.